Hey movie lovers, thanks for checking out this video where I am going to be doing a review for the 1971 winner for Best Picture, Patton, starring George C. Scott, directed by Franklin Schaffner. It's part of a new series that I'm going to be starting here on my channel. I'm really excited to get started where I'm going to be taking a look at every Academy Award season, starting with the year 1971, which acknowledges and celebrates the movies from 1970. So we're going to be looking at all the movies from 1970 to present day. I'm going to be taking a look at initially the Best Picture winners, doing a review there, doing some rankings, but eventually doing that with some of the other main categories: actor, actress, supporting actor, supporting actress, which I'll also be doing in this video for the 1971 Academy Awards, where I'll also be discussing some of the other categories that Patton was not a part of. But before I dig into this review, I would like to ask that if you enjoy my programming here, to please subscribe to my channel, as well as like and share this video. And if you'd like to support me as well as earning yourself quite a few rewards, join me on Patreon as well. And by the way, have a second channel going here, going to be starting this week. It's called Movie Haunts, doing it with my husband Santo. We're really excited for our first video to be released. That channel is going to be focusing all on our love of horror films and the horror genre. Definitely my favorite genre of all time. Deserves its own channel, and I'm so happy to be doing that one with him. We'll be doing reaction videos, reviews, some just specialty videos focusing on different movies that we have loved throughout our lives, but primarily focusing on horror and a little bit of sci-fi thrown in there as well. So now on this channel, I'm going to be doing a lot of Academy Awards talk and concentrating on the other genres that I love, working on a top 10 musical video as we speak. But anyways, let's get to this review for the 1971 winner of Best Picture, Patton. Patton is the 1971 Best Picture winner, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, starring George C. Scott, who plays General George S. Patton, a legendary general during World War II. The film opens with one of the most iconic scenes of all time, after which we follow Patton as he assumes command of II Corps, which has just experienced a pretty brutal loss of a battle. Patton's brand of leadership has some questionable tactics, but he had many successes, including his historic win at the Battle of the Bulge. Francis Ford Coppola and Edmund North, who wrote the screenplay, tell Patton's story in more of a historical, factual manner, leaving the impression of the man's character up to the viewer, which I really kind of appreciated. Okay, it's time to discuss the good, the bad, and the meh of the winner of the Oscar in 1971 for Best Picture, Patton. All right, let's start off with the good, and let's face it, the movie Patton really centers around one man and one man alone, and one man's performance alone, and that is George C. Scott, who turns in a tremendous, a stellar performance as General Patton. The entire movie revolves around him. He transforms into the man. Before seeing Patton, and this is the first time I've actually sat through the movie. I think as a kid, I remember watching the first few minutes, especially that scene with him giving his speech in front of the United States flag. But I never watched the movie in its entirety, so this was the very first time. It's a very engaging movie, but it's really an engaging performance. That is what anchors Patton, and I think that is really what drew people to Patton back in 1970, was the strength of George C. Scott's performance. Up until this performance, I had really only known him from the 1980 horror film The Changeling, one of my favorite horror films of all time, a movie that Santo and I may very well spotlight at one time or discuss on our channel Movie Haunts. with the exception of a small co-starring role in an 80s movie starring Timothy Hutton. The movie was called Taps. Don't know if you've heard of it, but he had a co-starring role in that. I really loved that movie when I was a kid as well, so I knew him from that, but never really had seen Patton other than those first few minutes. Was really, really blown away by his performance. The reason I would recommend this movie is on the strength of his performance alone, as well as the movie is beautifully shot. It is mostly on location, and as I'll discuss in a couple of minutes, it was kind of a higher budget on this movie, probably because of all the location shooting, but you can see the money that they spent on screen. A lot of times when they spend a lot of money on movies, you can't really tell on screen. They look a little bit cheap. You're like, well, where did they spend 150 million? This was one of those movies where you can actually see where they put the money. And it is a beautiful movie to look at. I generally love the aesthetic of the 1970s cinema anyways. I think it's just the color schemes and just the different technicolor they were using. I just think they have such a really just unique look to them, and you just know when you're watching a 70s movie. And this was kind of that late 60s into 70s transition, and you can kind of tell, even though with the clothing it's a little hard to tell because they're all in military garb through the entire movie. But the landscape shooting, the war scenes are choreographed awesome. The cinematography in this movie is on point. I really loved it. Franklin Shafter, a director I had never even heard of, so this very well may be the first movie I've seen directed by him. All right, so did I find anything bad about the movie? Well, the only thing that I could really come up with that would be a negative against Patton is that a lot of the secondary characters in this movie are very underdeveloped. There's some really good performances here, especially from people like Carl Malden, who plays one of Patton's friends, but you don't really get the feel that they have a history, even though it does state in the story that they have served together and have known each other for quite a long time. You don't necessarily feel that connection. And I think that's because so much of the movie is focused on the main man himself, the general that the movie is named after, that a lot of these secondary characters kind of get cast aside, just left on the peripheral of what is the basis of the movie, which is really the legend, the myth, General George S. Patton. Now, what about the meh? Well, the only thing that I could say that is so-so with the movie is that it is a little long. It does almost go to 3 hours. I think it's exactly about 2 hours and 50 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And you do start to feel it, or at least I did start to feel it in that last hour of the movie. Back then it was common, especially for movies that were nominated for the Academy Award, to run 3-4 hours. I know that at 2 hours and 50 minutes, that there are much longer movies that I am going to have to endure and sit through and hopefully enjoy. I am not a huge war film person, and Patton is definitely up there among the better ones that I've seen. And when it comes to the whole strategy of the war and the generaling part of being a general, I thought this movie really excelled in those areas. And that, in itself, I believe, makes Patton a necessary and mandatory watch, especially if you're a movie lover who's trying to dig back into the Academy Award movies of the past, if you're looking for Best Picture winners to watch. And I think Patton, of the last 50 years, is probably one of the most essential to watch. At the end of the day, I'm really glad I did give it a watch. I'm glad I'm doing this series, and I'm really glad that I started with this movie. I enjoyed it a lot more, found it a lot more engaging than I thought it would, and that's why I've given it a 4-star rating, a very high 4-star rating. All right, so Patton was released in April of 1970 and became a pretty modest box office hit. It was one of the more expensive movies of that year, costing in the neighborhood of 12 to 13 million, which means that given if you take double the production budget to make a profit, it would have to make in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 million to make a profit. It did break 60 million, mostly at the domestic box office, earning a little bit internationally, but most of that came from domestic. And at 60 million, that's a pretty decent profit, a profit that the studio, I'm sure, was happy with. Was it the blockbuster of 1970? No. I mean, when you look at a movie like Love Story, which I'll be talking about here in a minute, a little bit more in detail, definitely that movie was the blockbuster of 1970, made for a little over 2 million, which was really the cost. That was kind of the range of cost or production costs back in 1970. 12, 13 million, that Patton cost was really on the high end and almost unheard of back then. But that 2 million production budget in Love Story resulted in almost 200 million being done at the global box office. Over 100 million alone here in the United States. So Love Story was definitely, at least in my opinion, the blockbuster of 1970. But Patton was a moderate success. Now, as far as the Academy Award nominations go, definitely a success there. Earned 10 nominations along with Airport, which is a travesty, and I'll describe that in a minute here. But yes, Patton received the most Academy Award nominations when they were announced in the early part of 1971. Now, the biggest shock with Patton and its 10 nominations is that there were very few precursor awards love for Patton. Especially if you look at the Golden Globes, Patton actually did not do very well. It did get, I think around 6, 7 nominations, I believe, but only won one for Best Actor. So George C. Scott, Best Actor, was pretty much a given during awards season. He was definitely, I believe, looking at the way the awards were handed out, would have been the front runner and did in fact end up winning Best Actor. However, Best Picture in a drama that year at the Golden Globes went to Love Story. Love Story, I believe, probably would have been the hands down favorite to win Best Picture that year. So I believe Patton winning Best Picture in 1970 would probably have been a little bit of a surprise. All right, so the other two pictures alongside Patton, MASH, and Love Story to be nominated for Best Picture in 1971 were the Jack Nicholson, Karen Black movie 5 Easy Pieces, which I gave a 4.5-star rating to. Absolutely love that movie. And Airport, which I gave a 2-star rating to, a movie that I would not recommend to my worst enemy to watch. It is an overblown piece of trash that somehow made its way through and received 10 Academy Award nominations. As I look at the list of movies that were released in 1970, I think 1970 was kind of a downtime, perhaps because of the Vietnam War being at probably what I would consider to be the height of the Vietnam War was going on at that time. So perhaps there were less bigger blockbuster movies to open. That summer movie season thing that started with Jaws in the mid-70s, we had not gotten there yet. So I do believe that perhaps it was just a limited amount of movies that were there. Airport did kind of stand out because it was that big disaster movie, and it did make a lot of money. And it is just not a very good movie. I'm a disaster movie fan, and one of my favorites got nominated for Best Picture later on in the 70s, The Towering Inferno, a much more superior movie to Airport. The Airport 1970 isn't even the best Airport movie to have been released. So all the love that Airport was shown in 1971 at the Academy Awards is beyond me. The Golden Globes did acknowledge it. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association did acknowledge Airport to some degree, but not as much love as the Academy showed it. So I don't know if there was politics at play or if it was just a lack of product. but Airport was the 5th Best Picture. I think The Boys in the Band would have been a much better option there, especially since it was a tremendous movie. Now, not only did Patton win Best Picture, but Franklin Schaffner went on to win Best Director. And as I said, George C. Scott did win Best Actor. I don't have an issue with any of those awards. Even the Best Picture award, had I voted, I probably would have voted for Five Easy Pieces myself. But I really could see, especially in 1970, why there was so much love for Patton. Now, as far as Best Actress goes, Glenda Jackson for Women in Love, a movie that I just watched, by the way. I recommended it, and I would recommend it. I gave it a 3-star rating, which is exactly what I gave Glenda Jackson's performance. She did not have any precursor wins heading up to the Academy Awards. She did have a nomination for a Golden Globe Award, but lost to Ally McGraw for Love Story, who had to have been the front runner for this award on Oscar night in 1971, even though Glenda Jackson did win. But between Glenda's performance and Ally's performance, I definitely would have to go with Ally McGraw for Love Story in this category. I would have to agree with the Hollywood Foreign Press Association and their Golden Globe assessment in giving Ally McGraw the award. Glenda Jackson pretty much coming out of nowhere. Another objection I have with that is that she's really not in that movie that much. It doesn't really give that memorable of a performance. Just judging her on her performance, not even comparing her to the rest of the field. But yet, there was a lot of love shown to Glenda Jackson in the 70s. And as I go through this series, this is not the first time you'll be hearing her name. Far from it. Best Supporting Actor in 1971 went to John Mills for a movie called Ryan's Daughter. It's a historical drama that I have not seen, and I am actually looking forward to seeing it. Received quite a few nominations in 1971, so I can't really discuss this category with too much authority, but I will be getting back to this one, I guarantee you, later on as I work my way through these movies. Best Actress in a Supporting Role, though, oh yeah, I do have a lot to say about this category. This award went to Helen Hayes for her truly blah performance. If there is a definition of meh on screen, it would be Helen Hayes in Airport in 1970, and yet she won the award for Best Supporting Actress for her role in Airport. I think she's barely in the movie. She's in the movie for maybe 10 minutes. She has a stupid subplot. It's almost a comedy by error. All I can assume is that they must have figured she had been around forever and they better give her an award because it may be the last time that she would possibly or be at that stage where she would be able to receive an award. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it was in 1971. She's not even the best performance in Airport. They got nominated in this category. Maureen Stapleton also got nominated for her role in Airport as supporting actress, a far superior role, a much more substantial role. And coincidentally, she is the one, along with one other actress, who won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress. She shared that award with Karen Black for her performance in Five Easy Pieces. Karen Black is the one, by the way, if I had a vote, I would have voted for her for Best Supporting Actress. She's in most of the movie. Her performance is memorable. It's a well-scripted character. Her character is very multi-dimensional. But like I said, Maureen Stapleton also gave a decent performance in a very bad movie. But Helen Hayes getting the win for Airport is honestly laughable. All right, so that's going to be it for my look at the 1971 Academy Awards, celebrating the greatest in film achievement, or so they say, from 1970. This has been a really fun video. I can't wait to bring you my 1972 Academy Award video, taking a look at and reviewing the Best Picture winner of that year, The French Connection, which stars Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider. Once again, please, if you are a horror film fan especially, check out my second channel that I am doing with my husband, Santo. We're calling it Movie Haunts. We're going to be sharing our love, our passion for the horror film genre and all things horrific on that channel. So if you are a horror film fan, please check that out as well. The link will be in the description. And also, once again, I would really appreciate if you would subscribe to this channel, like and share this video, as well as join us over on Patreon. There is one Patreon account for both channels, so all the exclusive videos that you would get from both channels will be put onto that one membership. So you only need the one membership for both channels. So we'd love to have you over there with us as well. But that is going to be it for now. I really, really do appreciate you being here with me, and I look forward to seeing you again down the road. But for now, that's a wrap.